Tributes are pouring in for longtime Jeopardy host Alex Trebek. He died after a battle with pancreatic cancer. Ken Jennings, considered the greatest player of all time, said this about Trebek on Twitter. Alex wasn't just the best ever at what he did, he was also a lovely and deeply decent man. And I'm grateful for every minute I got to spend with him, thinking about his family and his Jeopardy family, which, in a way, included millions of us. James Holzhauer, another famous contestant, wrote, "It was one of the great privileges of my life to spend time with this courageous man while he fought the battle of his life." And Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak said this about him: Alex Trebek's courage, grace, and strength inspired millions and awed those of us who knew him. Trebek's final show airs Christmas Day. It is unclear if or when the show will return after that. He liked to say Betty White should replace him, and he also said he'd like to see LA Kings announcer Alex Faust or CNN legal analyst Laura Coates host the show. He continued filming throughout his cancer battle, and his last day of work was less than 2 weeks ago. Pancreatic cancer has few symptoms and often doesn't reveal itself until it's in its advanced stages. Joining me on the morning show, Dr. Husain Abbas, a surgeon and expert in gastrointestinal diseases. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Bruce.
Pancreatic cancer is a very aggressive cancer, and I guess the best way to describe the way it attacks is it tries to divide and conquer.
That's actually very true, and thankfully it's not a very common disease. When we look at the American Cancer Society numbers, it's about 1 in 65 Americans, would be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer during their life course. So for example, this year we're going to have about 60,000 of newly diagnosed pancreatic cancer, but unfortunately, as you said in your intro, about 50,000 of them will die from pancreatic cancer.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Any idea what causes it?
We actually don't know exactly what causes it. There are a myriad of causes for pancreatic cancer. Some of them are genetic. So we do know in the particular population who have or are prone to getting genetic disorders, and in these people we can actually screen it early. But the vast majority of people get it what we call sporadic. So there really is no one specific course, but there are also environmental factors such as smoking, such as alcoholism. All of these can actually cause or increase the risk of actually developing pancreatic cancer.
I mentioned the symptoms usually appear late, but when they do, what are they?
So that is correct, and that is the biggest problem with pancreatic cancer is symptoms are revealed very late, actually, and they're very nonspecific. So fullness, weight loss, and if actually it occurs in a particular part of the pancreas, we can actually notice jaundice, or what's called, basically what patients would notice, they're going to be yellow. They're going to notice that their eye, the whiteness of the eye, starts becoming yellow. And that is because the tumor has actually blocked the outflow from the liver, and the bile is backing up in the system. So that's one of the early signs that we can actually see, but it doesn't necessarily have to be there because the pancreas sits fairly back towards the back of the abdomen, so it doesn't cause any symptoms until fairly late, as you described.
How about treatments, and what's the success rate in fighting pancreatic cancer?
So this really depends on when and at what stage it's actually found. The problem with pancreatic cancer is if we cannot find it early. And it does not make any cost-effective sense to actually screen everybody, because usually screening involves imaging, so things like MRIs of the abdomen or CAT scans of the abdomen or something called endoscopic ultrasounds. Unfortunately, because the fear of risk of radiation does not make sense to actually radiate a large number of patients to screen for the tumor. Once we find the disease, it depends what stage it is. The best option or the best success rate would usually be actually resection. So for example, in the case of Justice Ginsburg, she was actually being screened for other condition because as she was recovering from her lung and breast cancers. But what happened is they found the tumor fairly early on, and so when they resected it, she actually survived for a decade after that.
And new protocols, anything that offers promise on the horizon?
Absolutely. So there, because it's a difficult disease to find, there are multiple improvements, actually, starting from the surgical, where we perform minimally invasive surgery, specifically robotic surgery, to try and improve recovery. But on the other hand, we also have targeted therapies, such as immunotherapies. There are, of course, specific cancer chemotherapies that we have, and also radiation. We're also experimenting with radiation. As you said, this is going to be a multimodal attack. And generally, anybody who is actually diagnosed with this disease is usually managed by multiple specialists at the same time.
Dr. Abbas, appreciate your specialty and your advice on managing pancreatic cancer.